Bordeaux demonstrated yet again why they are favourites to win this competition as they book their place to the final in Bilbao. My name is Mark. Let's talk rugby. Another great performance from the defending champions as they overcame Bath in their semi-final. Game was close, in the first half, but then second half, as champions teams do, Bordeaux got themselves a good enough margin for the game to basically done and dusted by the time Bath got their final score. So I'm going to go down through main events in the game, look at the stats, and then we'll talk about each of the teams. So start with Bordeaux, get really fast start to this one, run the ball in the Bath half, get to the edge. BLBRE finds Pinot, who's brought down just short, recycled, and then it's I think Cazzotti over to score, converted by Luku for 7 points to 0. Spencer then puts a nice little kick in behind. Jalabert forced to carry it over his own line under pressure from Hennessy. 5 metre scrum to Bath. Bath then put the pressure on as they move the ball right to left, few metres out, and then Spencer cross kicks back over to the left for Muir to score. Russell's conversion goes over, wired the upright, 7 points all. Bordeaux then to the corner from penalty. Bath deal with them all, but then Bordeaux move it right to left, and they've got numbers to put BLBRE over in the corner, converted from out wide by Luku for 14 points to 7. Bath then get themselves in a good position into 22. That was on the back of an up and under and really good work from Muir in the air, but Luku gets over the ball, wins a penalty for Bordeaux, and it was moments like that made a real difference at this point of the game where it's fairly even. Certainly Bordeaux, I think, edging it, but again, you feel like if Bath had been able to get themselves some momentum around that time in the game, maybe would have seen a different outcome. Hennessy then breaks up the middle and then goes towards the touchline as he gets into 22. BLBRE covers back well. Bath then go to the forwards to work to a few minutes out. Bordeaux are offside, so we come back for the penalty. There's then a suspicion of shoulder to the head, and it looked on the only replay that we saw that there was probably a case to answer there. The officials say, though, there's no angle that shows contact. Certainly with French TV directors, these angles go suspiciously missing at times. But I have to say at this point, from here then, the absolute bias of the commentary, especially Andy Good, from here to the end of the game was just a little bit too much, honestly. I do feel that Bath maybe at times could feel a little bit hard done by with certain decisions, but who was it? The other, who's the other? Delalio, I think, was the other commentator. The third commentator, and he made a very good point. I felt that he said that in situations like this where you're going away to France, things like this are going to happen, and you've got to be able to produce something to kind of level the playing field yourself. And he felt that Bath's performance wasn't up to that, and I would agree with that. But it's not just about Andy Good. You look all across the spectrum. I think for any country you can find biased commentators. We have them here in Ireland as well, and it kind of, for me, it kind of spoils the viewing of the game when someone is just on that all the time, picking out every little thing that the officials got wrong, but only in favor of the team that they're obviously supporting. And that's what we saw from Andy Good in this, unfortunately. But again, it's not just him, it's not just English commentators either, and it's wider as well than that. Just look at the Muppets from Off the Ball, the way they stir things up just for views and clicks and stuff. I don't agree with anything like that. If you watch my channel for long enough, that I never complain about referees, because I think they have a very difficult job and do a very good job under those circumstances as well. And I thought, yeah, the officials, decent job today. Yes, maybe there was a couple of things that they missed, but probably for both teams, and that's to be expected. If you're not expecting players to be, 100% perfect with everything that they do on the field, you can't do the same. You can't judge the officials by even higher standards than that. Right, so that done, let's keep going. So Bath then they go for the line again, but Barbary gets held up over the line. We come back then for another penalty for it was Bordeaux. Then they got a warning for the number of penalties they gave away in the red zone, but unfortunately Bath tapped the penalty. Barbary's pass comes off a Bordeaux player, comes off the hand and goes backwards. Like it could have been, if that ball had gone forward, I think that player probably would have ended up in the bin. But knocking the ball back on your own side, it's not an offence. So they snaffle that ball, and Luku is able to clear. And there was a few things where bounce the ball maybe went Bordeaux's way, but we saw as well where the bounce ball didn't go Bordeaux's way, and they still made things happen. So again, champion teams like Bordeaux, who for me have been absolutely standout compared to anyone else this season in this competition, just make things happen, whether it's going for them or not. I think Bath then strike off the resulting line out. Lovely hands as they move left. Arundel feeds Muir, who does really well, rides a tackle from Luku to finish in the corner. Conversions missed 14 points to 12. Bath then on the attack again. Arundel tries a kick over the top. The bounce isn't kind, and then BLBRE is able to kick clear. Again, had that bounce gone their way, they get the noses in front. Maybe we see a different complexion to the game. But then back come Bath. They go left. Pepper gets them into the 22, but Bordeaux get over the ball to win a penalty. And I thought that was something, a couple of things from Bath that I felt were not up to standard, as it were, for a semi-final performance. One was the amount of runners that went on their own and got isolated, and the second one was how passive Spencer was as a scrum half. He was happy enough to to have slow ball, to potentially leave the ball in there for a counter ruck from Bordeaux as well, and not really get times when I felt like they needed to up the tempo, and he wasn't able to do that. So certainly a couple of things that Bath weren't doing that maybe could have changed certainly the outcome in this period of the game. Next then, Will Muir with a brilliant take in the air, but then Dunn knocks on, and Bordeaux have a decent attacking position from the scrum. They attack off that dominant scrum. Jalabert finds Luku. He kind of juggles with the ball. And again, another one of these things where, it didn't go perfectly for Bordeaux, but they make it work. He puts it inside to Mo Fana. And then I think Tisati goes close before then Luku snipes over under the post to score, converted for 21 points to 12. Barbie then knocks on, and there's another chance for Bordeaux to attack just before half time. They work into 22. Pepper not rolling, and they have a penalty in front of the post. Luku makes it 24 points to 12 at half time, and that felt significant, even though it wasn't a penalty, it wasn't a try. It felt significant just because you're adding that just extra score just before the break and giving yourself a little bit more breathing room. Into second half then, Bath sustained period of possession into 22 as the forwards go for pick and drives. They then move the ball, but Carreras knocks on the line. We come back for a penalty. The forwards then have a go battering away at the line before they go to the backs. Hennessy then, with a step, stretches out to score, convert for 24 points to 19. Hennessy did very well there because Bordeaux coming up really quick in defence, Bath under pressure. I think the original plan was to go wide where they had numbers, but he did really well to realise, that Bordeaux had come up to the point where the ball out wide was risky. Put that step on and is able to finish as well. So that was a really good moment from him and from Bath. Bordeaux then on the attack into 22. Carreras just about snags Bielbiri, and then Bath force a knock on at the next ruck. Penalty advantage then to Bordeaux. Jalabert snipes up the middle deep into 22, but knocks on to come back from the penalty. They kick to the corner. Bath, they halt them all, then they turn it over as Bordeaux look to spread it. And you're thinking at this point, Bath, they're soaking up a lot of pressure. And, in semi-finals like this, you're going to expect to have to do that. We saw, Bordeaux having to do it before this as well. But then it's about, at some point you got to lift the pressure, and then you got to start applying the pressure down the other end and getting that scoreboard moving when you're the team that is behind. Bordeaux then close to the line after dart from Jalabert. Bath win a penalty, and Spencer goes quickly, smashes it downfield. Brilliant chase on that, and then Rayasi is forced to kick it out close to his own line. Almost fell over the ball when he was kicking out. I think he was a bit gassed running back after it. Bath's line out though misfires, and their mistake lifts the pressure for Bordeaux, who maul it miles up to 22 before they then win a penalty. They then go up the line and attack on the right. Will Muir, good work to stop Wokey, but he injures his arm. And he had to be treated for a while as well before he was taken off. So wish him, a speedy recovery, and anyone else who was injured as well. Wokey, though, with a brilliant offload from there. And Bath managed to turn it over, but then Ewell is forced into touch. Wokey then wins the line at the tail. They drive the maul. It splinters, stopped just short, and then it is Marlowe who dives over, and we have a Timo check for a grounding. There is separation, so it's no try. Come back for the penalty. Ewells goes to the bin for collapsing that maul, and Tamifuna taps the penalty. He's stopped initially, but then there's another couple of recycles, and then he's on it again. And this time there's a bit of a mismatch as he goes over under the post, convert from 31 points to 19. Bath then go to 10 metres out from penalty. The maul gets halted, so they go to pick and goes, and eventually Bordeaux over the ball to win the penalty. And again, it's that mix of not knowing when to be patient and not knowing when to lift the tempo was the problem, I think, for Bath in a lot of the game. A lot of those ones where people are picking and going, there isn't support there. There doesn't seem to be a threat of them going out to the backs either, which means that Bordeaux can just focus on the ball carrier, isolate them, and win the penalty. Russell then, he gets charged down his 22, but the bounce of the ball actually goes Bath's way, and Bordeaux go into the ruck off their feet. Penalty to Bath, who, at that stage, completely running out of time. Bordeaux then on the attack, they get to the edge on the left, they shift it back inside. The ball doesn't go to hand, it basically bounces, but then Matthew gets on the end of it and goes over to seal the win. That's converted from 38 points to 19. Bath then, they get the final score of the game. Arndell breaks up the left, kicks him behind, and Carr Smith gets there to score, converted for 38 points to 26, the full-time score. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the stats, and then, as I said, we'll talk a little bit more about each of the teams. So let me pull up the stats here on the official site. So to start with, 5 tries to 4 in the game, and Bath, you felt if they were going to win this one that they would have to outscore Bordeaux. They weren't going to win a game like this, with penalties, especially not the way that they show ambition attacking as well. Next, then we have attack. Actually, before that, let's just mention 100% for Jalabert off the tee, and 75% for Finn Russell, 100% for Luku off the tee, and 75% for Russell. And that is significant when you think about, the fact that they're going to be playing Leinster in the final. If it's a tight game, that ability off the tee could be, the deciding factor between the teams there, especially when you look at, how Harry Burns struggled yesterday. It doesn't mean he's going to struggle in the final, because he's had some great games off the tee as well, but it certainly is something to point out. And as well, when you think that Ringrose missed a conversion from right in front, that was when Leinster looked like they had the game won, and then the game finished really tight at the end. So that would have been embarrassing had they lost that. But then onto attack, meters made 474 to 421, and that's from 109 carries to 159. So Bordeaux 50 less carries, but they made 50 odd more meters, and just shows the impact that they had. Clean breaks in 18 to 5, and that's from 35 defenders beaten, which is a staggering number, but it means converting 1 out of every 2 defender beaten into a clean break. And if they do that against Leinster, like, only one team is lifting the trophy this year. Bath then 21 defenders beaten, 5 clean breaks, 1 and 4. It's kind of more in line with what you normally see at Champions Cup level, and just again kind of underscores how amazing Bordeaux are. Once they beat that first defender. Offloads then 18 to 7. Passes 93 to 119. Possession then 38% to 62, and territory 39 to 61. So Bath having like 50% more of the ball and 50% more time in the Bordeaux half, but again weren't able to do as much with their possession and territory as Bordeaux were able to do. And again, in games like this, you've got to make the most of what you have. It felt, for me at least, coming into this game, that Bath, they needed to at least at one point get their noses up front. It wasn't a case of let's come back and win it in the last minute. It was get your noses up front, and then make Bordeaux maybe chase the game, and maybe you'll see some errors from them that you can capitalize on, but never able to do that, even though they had, again, so much of the ball and so much of it in the Bordeaux half. Tackles made then 198 to 80. Tackle success 85%, is amazing at this level. Normally we talk about, get into the 80s and you're doing well. So 85% is exceptional, and then 56% for Bath. So almost missing 1 in every 2 tackles, very close to that. And no matter how anything else is going, whether you feel the officials are against you or not, if you're missing almost half of your tackles, you are not winning the game. Turnovers 1, then 7 all. Set piece 12 lineouts to 1 to 8, and then 92% for Bordeaux, so very solid there. 73% for Bath, and we talked about already misfiring at inopportune moments, when they were looking to apply that pressure, keep themselves in the game, and that's when their set piece kind of deserted them. 6 scrums won each, 100% on the scrums. Scrum wasn't a massive factor in the game. On to kicking then, 26 kicks from hand from Bordeaux and 36 from Bath. So again, to come back to the whole thing of people saying that they want to see less kicks in the game because it's boring and they want to see exciting rugby, but these two teams who play massively exciting rugby, like Bordeaux, certainly the most exciting team in the Northern Hemisphere, kicking 26 times, and Bath, probably the most exciting English team in this year certainly, and maybe last year in the Prem at least, kicking 36 times. So between them, 50. Between them, 62 kicks in the game, and that actually eclipses the Leinster Toulon game, where there was 60 kicks overall, so two more kicks in this game than the Leinster Toulon game. And then kick meters 908 to 1048. So both teams, averaging in around 30 meters per kick, and 30 meters per kick is a lot of the time where you've got that mix of kicks. You're going for length at times to try and turn the defense, but also you're trying chips over the top, and you're going for contestables as well. And we saw Bath getting a lot of joy from the contestables. We see that in retained kicks. Just one retained kick for Bordeaux, 13 for Bath. I think on like that stat is maybe a little bit misleading. It doesn't tell the whole story. Bath certainly were, I think, the better team in the air, and to retain 13 kicks is amazing. But Bordeaux, a lot of the time, they were just getting up to disrupt and then cleaning up scraps, so not necessarily retaining kicks, but still the ball would break for them. But yeah, decent tactic from Bath, and it did get them on front foot at times. But again, didn't really make the most of it. You felt, if you gave that many retained kicks to Bordeaux, they would have gotten more scores on the back of it than Bath did. Next, then let's look at the breakdown. So 53 rucks won to 117, and then ruck success 96 to 98%. So decent numbers there. Turnovers 1 and rucks and mauls 7 each, and then mauls, Bordeaux successful 8 out of 9 of their mauls, and then Bath just one maul that was successful. So you can see which team felt that their maul was a weapon, and we saw as well which team was getting scores on the back of that maul power as well. On to discipline then. 7 penalties conceded by Bordeaux, which again, really good performance, because remember that they were at that point where they were, on a warning for giving away too many penalties close to their own line, and fortuitously maybe were able to clear the ball, but they never really came under as much pressure again in the game. Bath giving away 10 penalties and that one yellow card as well for Ewell collapsing them all. Okay, so let's talk about the teams. We start with Bath. I said in the build-up that it felt like it was a year early for this Bath team in terms of being able to go onto the final or maybe lift the trophy, and I think it proved to be true here as well. Doesn't mean that Bath will definitely be back in the semi-finals next year and potentially go on to the final, potentially win the competition. What we've seen in the Champions Cup, it's very rare for a team just to come out of completely nowhere and end up winning the competition. And what I mean by that is that normally it's a multi-year progression, and we saw that with Bordeaux as well. We go back 2 seasons ago where Bordeaux, one of the best teams in the competition, in the pool stages, looking like they're going to make a final, looking like potentially going to be the team to beat for anyone in the competition, and they end up being eliminated by Harlequins. I think, was it around the 16 or quarterfinals? It was certainly before semi-finals, and but then they come back last year, they get to the final and they win it. And obviously that experience from the year before helped them. And I think the same with Bath, where the players having the experience, making a run to the semi-final, the performance that they put in against some really top class teams as well, having to come back against Saracens and then Northampton as well in their knockout games is definitely going to stand to the team, but it doesn't mean that they're guaranteed to reach the semi-final again next year, because to make this semi-final you've either got to be the absolute standout team as Bordeaux are, or you got to have a little bit of luck that goes your way somewhere along the way. So for Bath, even if they're a better team next year, doesn't mean that they're going to make it this far. But it does mean that if they find themselves in the same position next year, that experience certainly should help them in making a contest closer, or maybe edging a contest, or just producing a performance that means that they're more comfortable in this on the scoreline, and they're able to progress to a final. So it certainly will stand for them. But again, experience isn't a guarantee of progression. But overall, I thought a very good campaign from them. Played some really good rugby. The one criticism would be the fact that a lot of the games were kind of high scoring, and they did rely in the knockout stages on being able to score and burst and come back. And it felt that against this Bordeaux team, it's very hard to kind of get this Bordeaux team, I think, on the rocks, where you can do that kind of score 2 or 3 tries in a 10-15 minute period to kind of flip things over. I think and we saw today Bordeaux's defense, especially in those last ditch moments, was better than Bath's. I think they made Bath work for the most part a lot harder for their scores than Bath made Bordeaux work for theirs. Bath did have some decent defensive moments, but again, overall, I think the difference on the defensive side of the ball certainly showed through, I think, as the game continued on. But yeah, I think they can be proud of their performance here, and it's good to see as well. It's all, for me at least, always good to see teams who are coming up and coming through, rather than us having, we had a period there where, it was basically Leinster, Toulouse, and La Rochelle, as kind of the 3 main teams, and then it will be another team that would make maybe semi-finals or be in that potential kind of hat for the win for a little while. So always good to see, I think, new teams coming through and just bringing something a little bit different, getting other fans excited about the competition as well, because we know that the competition over recent years maybe gone a little bit flat. So any chance you can get to excite fans about this competition is brilliant. Last year, ahead of the semi-final against Leinster, I met some really nice Northampton fans in Dublin. Pleasure to talk to them, have a bit of a chat about rugby with them as well. Wish them well for the game, and and then after they'd won, because I met them again, just wished them well for the final as well. So just always nice to have kind of a broader church of fans were involved in the big games. Now on to Bordeaux. So defending champions, and they really played like it today. It was a little bit tight in the first half, but they were never behind in the game, and with it being like 14-12, they then were able to add 10 more points before the break and give themselves that cushion. Then in the second half, then they just kind of eked it out, get a little bit further ahead, and by that point then, lone scores from Bath weren't really going to trouble them. Bath needed to then be scoring in bursts, and as we talked about, the defense was certainly the better of the 2 teams, and people will obviously look at the attacking talent they have, the 5 tries they scored, etc. But for me, it was that defense really that won them this game. They really stepped up at important times, and again, you look at it and you see the moments where things didn't quite go their way, but they still managed to score out of it. Again, Luku juggling with the ball, the pass to Matthew, not going to hand, but him still being able to get over to score. Those things, don't happen. Sometimes they do happen like a freak thing, but generally, if it keeps happening to a team, whether it's Bordeaux or whether it's France, it keeps happening to a team regularly. It's not an accident. You can see that. A lot of French players now are seem to be way ahead of other Northern Hemisphere teams and players in terms of whatever training they're doing around loose balls and that kind of thing, like the ball just going to deck and being the first there to get to it. They seem so comfortable in those positions, whereas other teams kind of panic a little bit. And, I think that pays off for them in situations like that. And, as I say, good teams make their own luck. And I think Bordeaux certainly did that today. As I said, set piece was solid. Attack looked good. Kicking game I thought was very good as well. Just in terms of the way they were applying the pressure, they were under pressure at times as well from the Bath kicking game. But I think the way they defended after Bath had retained the ball certainly diffused a lot of what would have been dangerous situations. I still feel like they've got to be hot favourites going into that final against a Leinster team who, haven't hit the heights this season compared to other years. I think even a Leinster team going into the final firing, you would still think that maybe Bordeaux kind of would edge it in terms of being favourites for that, just because of the performances, in last year's run to winning the competition and this year, getting back to that final and potentially retaining their title as well. So, for me, definitely the favourites for that final in Bilbao.